I do want to put a trigger warning for this episode. We are going to be talking about food and eating and all of those kind of things. So if you struggle with that, I just want to give you a heads up. Welcome back to another episode of Perspectives. I am so thankful that you are tuning into another episode. If this is your first time, welcome. As always, my heart is not to condemn or to change your mind or to do anything like that, but I want to open conversation about things that are not talked about and that we need to talk about. We need to be able to seek the Lord on it, but also have honest conversations about it and gain perspective on things that maybe we don't struggle with or we do struggle with, and just to grow. I don't understand how we can grow without talking about things and bringing things to the light and just, processing through things. That's the heart of the podcast. Today, we are going to be talking about how our body is a temple and how just like what we consume changes the way we feel, the way we act, and in the long run, it changes a lot of things for our health and stuff. So, the whole process of this podcast has been very personal for me because I have personally been struggled with like overeating, emotional eating, binging, undereating, starving myself, all the things, and not even eating things that are good fuel for my body. And so I have just been processing with the Lord and just really asking Him to convict me and to show me what to do and give me wisdom and stuff. So I just wanted to be honest on where I'm at with this episode. This episode is not at all to condemn or to put shame on anyone. It's just literally to open conversation about food and to bring thought to it, because I think there are many times I didn't think about what I was doing or how it was really affecting my body. I was just doing what felt good and what was easy. So there's a few things that I hope you walk away with as you listen to this podcast. First, you have a calling and a purpose on your life. 2, how you take care of the body God gave you is so important to fulfill that calling and purpose. 3, you can't fully take care of other things in your life if you aren't taking care of and fueling your body well first. I hope this opens conversation for you and just makes you feel like you can go to the Lord, hear what He has to say, let Him speak over you what He wants. I have Kari on the podcast today.
Hi.
Do you want to like share a little bit about yourself?
Yeah. I live in Las Vegas. I'm from Ohio, really small town. I played volleyball in college. My life was a bit of a mess when I was young, and I had a grandma who was praying for me because she could tell I was taking a really bad path. But yeah, thank God, God's bigger than my messy choices. But yeah, so I played volleyball in college, and then I moved to New York for a few months, and then I moved to LA with my brother. I lived there for 11 years.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so the first like 7 years I was in the modeling industry, and just had a lot of highs and a lot of lows. And it was a very empty, depressing time of my life. It was like everyone was thought I was just like living the dream, but it was that was a really sad time in my life, probably the darkest days for sure. But yeah, I ended up getting saved 6 years ago, and then I met my husband, who's now my husband, at a church in Los Angeles. He was a worship leader there. And yeah, he recently, our life has been a crazy adventure. We just are super obedient and just say yes to whatever God's asking us to do, even when it's most of the time it's very hard and it's never what we really want to do. But we always see the amazing fruit and like why He was calling us to these places. But we adopted our first son. We're living in LA. We lived in LA. I was there 11 years. He was there 8 years, and then we moved to Texas. God was asking us to move there, and I went through youth with the mission schools, and then we adopted our first son in Texas when he was a month old, and then we moved to Virginia Beach during the whole pandemic, and then my husband randomly he got on America's Got Talent, and then in the middle of that whole journey, we adopted our son's older brother, and then we lived in a hotel in LA for 2 months, and he won America's Got Talent. And actually, the day he won, our lease was up in Virginia Beach. So
Oh my gosh.
our life has been just one crazy adventure. But it's been so cool because yeah, just God's been doing a lot of like full circle moments in my life, like, and redeeming my past.
Mm.
And it's amazing, like, where He can take you in less than 5 years,
Yeah. Do you just like
just by
step back?
making.
Do you just step back
Oh,
and just go like, what is even happening? What is my life?
yes, it's crazy. Like when we were living at the beach, it was so surreal because it was just such a sweet time with our son Xander. When it was just Xander and my husband and I just couldn't believe it because I used to live at the beach. I was engaged to someone when before I met Jesus.
Yeah.
I was engaged to a guy I met in Vegas at a pool party, and he bought me everything I ever wanted, and we lived on the beach, and I was very comfortable but very depressed. And so once I like got out of that relationship and once I started changing my whole life around, um it was wild where God, like, that was my first like big act of obedience and just moving out, and I knew he wasn't the right one, and
Mm-hmm.
he wasn't seeking after God. And so anyways, it's weird, like full circle. I was living at the beach 5 years later with my husband and a son, and God just restored everything that I gave up,
Oh,
like all the hard things that I gave up that the
yeah.
world said I needed. And then what was crazy was coming to Vegas once we decided once he won America's Got Talent, they offered him a 1 year residency here in Vegas. And so we prayed a lot and felt like that's what we're supposed to do. And I had prophetic words spoken over me 5 years ago about going back to the places that were a really dark time in my life, places that sucked the life out of me, and how the Lord was going to be like using me and I was going to be fully safe and protected. And that was Vegas for me. I used to come here every other weekend. So once we moved here, they put us in a suite for like 2 weeks before we were able to move into our home. And I almost felt bad about it. It was like this gigantic suite at the MGM Signature. And the first day we walked in, there was just a balcony overlooking this massive pool. And I was having a quiet time out there. I'm with my journal, my Bible, and I'm like, that looks awfully familiar. And I couldn't figure out, like, I'm like, I feel like I've been to this place before. And sure enough, it was one of two pools that I used to party at. And I felt like God was like,
Oh
this is
my
what
gosh.
happens when he literally pulled me out of the pit of like despair and destruction and this empty life with like momentary fun. It wasn't real joy. It was just
Right,
like,
right.
and literally like placed me in like a higher place with a
Ugh,
totally different view. It was so cool.
that's amazing.
But that's just one of so many full circle moments. It's been so unbelievable.
That's so cool. I don't know. That's so
Yeah,
encouraging, even for me, just like hearing that, like, just it just reminds you how much, like, how great God is. Like,
so good.
he's so sovereign over everything.
Yeah. And
So
he
good.
truly knows what's best. He's like,
Yeah.
I have so much more. And that's my whole life story is there's like this picture of Jesus holding this huge teddy bear. You've probably seen it. It's kind of cheesy,
Mm-hmm.
maybe. But then there's this little girl and she's holding her tiny bear, like, and he's saying, trust me, give me what you think you need. And I have so much more in store for you. And I just believed him and I just kept doing whatever he would ask me to do, even when it was hard, even when my obedience made me look like a crazy person.
Yeah.
And people are like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
But
That is hard whenever you're like people around you're like, what? No, God cannot be speaking that. And you're like, I think he is.
Yeah.
Like, yep.
I know.
Yeah.
Like moving into a house full of pregnant girls in crisis pregnancies. My husband's like, "Are you sure?" I'm like, "I really feel like God's speaking this." And I knew it was going to be really hard. And I was going to be full-time ministry, like 24/7 with these girls. And I'm so thankful we wouldn't have either one of our sons if we wouldn't have said yes to that. It just was
Oh,
wild to me.
so good.
But
I love that how you say like it's hard too. Like it's not always easy, like what
it's
saying yes
always
to God, like
hard.
what it is. Like it's not, yeah.
Yeah, it's actually, I don't think, ever been the thing that I want to do, but
Yeah.
it's the uncomfortable places he calls us where he like
Mm,
grows us so much and prepares us for everything he has in store. And it's such an adventure. I feel like we're in a mountaintop season right now, but it's been 6 years of the valley and
yeah.
hard times for sure.
Jeez.
But
That's so good. So good. Well, I wanted to have you on the podcast to talk about originally it was like gluttony and stuff. Like that was like the main thing, but I think there could be some other things we could touch on too with like food and eating and like because there's one
yeah,
side of like gluttony and then there's the other side of like not eating and
right.
stuff. I was kind of shocked because before I started my podcast, I asked on Instagram and I was like, "Oh, like what are some things that people like you want people to talk about more?" And this was a request. I was like, "Gluttony? Like this isn't something I would think to talk about like at
Yeah,
all." And so when I got that request, I kind of put it in the back of my mind. And then this month, God's kind of like been speaking to me about it. And then even talking to you previously on the phone, just like thinking about it in my own life and being more aware and being like, wow, like I'm surrounded by like gluttony and just like how food is just like, I don't know, like it's unhealthy. Like it's almost
yeah,
like a good thing. Like God gave us food to like taste and to be good, but it's
sure.
like abused and just like turned and twisted into something that God didn't intend for it to be. And like I'll be the first to say like I struggle with it, emotional
Yeah,
eating, like or even swinging on the other side of like not eating and like being like, oh, like I didn't eat today, like let's see how long I can go until I can like not eat or whatever.
yeah,
Like different things like that where I'm just like, yeah, like that's not okay. Like that's not loving for me, for God, or the people around me. And so, yeah, do you want to share a little bit of like your struggle with it?
yeah. I think so growing up in Ohio in a small town, there's just not a lot of options. I mean, everything was fast food,
Yeah.
and my family was always on the go. So we played a lot of sports. So it was like Wednesday night Pizza Hut buffet, Sunday night Ponderosa buffet. Like we ate out every meal almost, and it was always just like stuff that was not good for you. And actually, the first time I noticed how it affected us, but I didn't make any changes yet, was when I played volleyball. I played club volleyball, and it was like an all day thing. So we would start at like 7 a.m. and finish sometimes like 8 p.m.,
Oh, wow.
like games all day. And always in the beginning of the day, we started off so good. Like our team was like so good. And then by the end of the day, we were all just like kind of like a bump on a log. It was just like slothy and like feeling tired and grumpy. And it was like, but we were snacking on junk all day. Like that's what you do at club tournaments. Everyone just brings like tons of snacks and you're just like eating junk food all day.
Yeah.
And it was interesting like how I saw affect our play. And then I had a volleyball coach in college who was really into health and wellness. And she never like really let her kids have sugar. And I was like, you are crazy. Like that's abuse. I mean, I was so judgmental towards her. And she would make us eat like at Subway, not that Subway's healthy, but that was like a healthier option, I guess, instead of like burgers or whatever.
Yeah.
And I was always so mad. I mean, I couldn't even stand walking at the subway, that smell. I was like, can we eat something else? But she was really conscious about it, and I didn't get it at the time. I just thought it was silly. And then I moved to LA, and even in the modeling industry, I mean, I went on the side where you're saying of just like not eating. And um, sorry, my headphone keeps
You're
popping up.
good.
Um, I aired on the side too of not eating and feeling like I needed to be skinnier and I wasn't, you know, fit enough, like just obsessive about working out in my body. And I was definitely conscious of what I was eating, but for the wrong reasons.
Mm-hmm.
And then my girlfriend actually was Anthony Kiedis. He's the lead singer of the Red Hot Chili Peppers, and she was his nanny. And so he was like traveling on tour. He'd be in Hawaii at his other house, and he would ask us to come like house sit his place in Malibu. And we would go there, and he had like coconut water and ginger and coconut oil and turmeric root and like all these things. And I was just like, this guy's weird, like lentils and just all this weird food that I'd never seen before. I'm like, what does he eat? This is so strange. And till I made fun of it again. And it wasn't actually till, I mean, I ate terrible. I mean, and I ate so much cereal, like just nothing was nutritious. It was all
Yeah.
processed. And then I got saved, and I mean, it was like very quickly after I got saved. I was eating pizza with the guy that I was engaged to before I met Dustin. And so we were living on the beach, and we would get Costco pizza every Friday night. And so I was just like dousing my pizza in Parmesan cheese without even thinking about it, just like covered it, and I dip it in ranch and just like all the things. And I was just sitting there, and I remember like hearing God's voice like one of the first times ever. And he was just like, you're going to end up like your parents. Like your mom has a lot of health problems. And my mom was an all-American athlete in two sports. Like she was just phenomenal, like phenomenal. People still talk about her. And I've seen how just food has affected her over the years. And I know like a lot of times I feel like so sorry because like it's not even her fault. I feel like there's so much stuff hidden in the foods, right? That it
Mm-hmm.
gets you to this point of like, I don't know, feeling like hopeless with it. And I've seen that happen to her. So I felt like God was like, you are a creature of habit, and we eat the way that our families ate. And a lot of times we say things are hereditary. I don't know if it's fully, I think sometimes things are hereditary, but I think a lot of times we just eat what our family ate. And if our family baked a lot, or we ate a lot of sweets, like we're going to have a sweet tooth, and then we're going to keep doing the same for the next generation, right? So I ate everything my parents used to eat, and God was like, you need to make changes, like otherwise you're gonna have the same problems when you're older. It's gonna catch up to me eventually, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so then I felt like, okay, well maybe I can start making simple changes. I just stopped using like so much Parmesan cheese, and I stopped using ranch. I was like, I like pizza without it. I don't need all that. So it was a journey. Like that's kind of where first started thinking about it, and that's where I always like try to get people to think about it. Like I was never thinking about what I was putting in my body. And then, so that kind of evolved into a paleo lifestyle. I started doing like mostly paleo, and I was feeling so good. I was sober for the first time in my life. I was eating paleo. It was the first time I wasn't eating sugar. And I was so clear in my head. I was so motivated. I felt like these like scales came off, and I got this burst of energy, and I was feeding like every homeless person in Long Beach where I was living. Like I was just on fire. And I remember and I knew grains were another thing. Like gluten would just make me like want to go to sleep. And I hadn't had it in months. And so I go to work. I was working full time for this company called OzSale. I was modeling for them. And I go into work. I'm like sharing my story. I'm so excited. First of all, I made like scrambled eggs and a big green juice or whatever. That was like my breakfast, which was enough. I had so much energy. I went into work. I was probably annoying to everyone. And so I just felt like fully alive for the first time. And I was witnessing to the stylist. I was like telling her my story and just like so excited about life. And then they ordered Subway for lunch, and I was hungry, and I forgot to pack a lunch that day. And I was just like, I'll just eat like a 6 inch. I used to eat a 12 inch. I'm like, I'll just do 6 inches. Maybe it won't bother me. I hadn't had grains or anything like that, any processed stuff in months.
Oh.
And so I'm talking like 10 minutes after I ate it, I had a migraine. I was grumpy. I wanted to go home. I was tired and irritable, and I was just like over it. I didn't want to be there. It just made me so tired, and like my body was hurting. And so that's when it was like the biggest eye-opening moment for me. Like, oh wow, this is really affecting us, like what we're putting in our bodies, you know? And I started to like change my view on food, and I wanted it to be fuel. And I was thinking, like, man, that's just the processed stuff is just, it's just so damaging. And so, anyways, after that, I think that was when so after I met Dustin, like not too long after that, and he was like, he made a video making fun of health food. Like it was, he had a
Oh
whole
my
YouTube
gosh.
channel and this whole video making fun of like wet water tastes like nothing, and how like he would just like shove spinach in his mouth and just he was miserable. The video was very funny, but he always made fun of health stuff. But thankfully, his previous girlfriend before he met me was like really into, you know, everyone tells you what you can't have, but
Mhm.
she was really good about showing him like, no, this is what I have instead of ice cream. Like I'll make this. And she was teaching him all kinds of like sweet treats that were really
Nice.
healthy, made with like dates and like raw honey and stuff. And so he was way more open when I met him to the health stuff. And I was like really on board with it. So we did first it started off with we did a cleanse. It was a candida cleanse for like a month where we only had vegetables. And again, like all of us had these bursts of energies. My sister-in-law detoxed off sugar like she was coming off heroin. We were doing homeless ministry at the time, and we're like, this looks no different than the heroin detoxes we witnessed. Like
Oh,
this is
it's
crazy.
rough.
Cold sweats, heart palpitations, migraines. Like she was going through it. And so that's when we all got off processed sugar. We haven't had it in like 6 years, I think.
Oh wow.
But it's been a wild journey. I think just little by little making like changes. And um we ended up going to this church in LA. That was like the biggest eye-opening thing as far as ministry, how much this affects my ministry when I'm not treating my body like a temple.
Mhm.
We were at a church there, and there was like a lot of people with health problems who were so young, and like, you know, 55, 60-year olds and walkers. And you know, a lot of people were asking me for advice, but and we would always get a hard time for like not eating the desserts because they had tons of donuts and cookies and cupcakes and just like so much sugar. And the, a lot of people give us a really hard time for not eating it. And I was like, man, you should be like so stoked that we're, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah,
I don't
like
know, making better choices, but it was like we're getting harassed for it kind of. And I know a lot of people were hurting and I want to help. And I'm like, I feel like I know how to help you, but you know, I don't know. So um I a lot of people would ask for advice, and I'd be like, well, it would, this would be a great place to start, to maybe like first start cutting out sugar. And they'd be like, no, like I've been taking turmeric, or I take ginger. I'm like, you don't need to take anything else, you need to cut something out. Like
get to the
something's
root
got to
of the
go.
problem.
Yeah.
Like,
And like this stuff's not going to help you unless you cut things out. And so um I'll never forget, it was like wild. The one day they had a conference, and it was for all these pastors in this it was called, I forget, the Open Bible Church. Maybe it was like 200 pastors that came together. And I thought this event was going to just be fire, and Dustin and I were volunteering. And you know, because it was all pastors. So uh this main speaker came from Hawaii. He planted over like 200 churches, and Dustin and I could not take notes fast enough. My husband and I were like, oh my gosh, this is so good. And he was even talking about health from the stage, and it was just really cool hearing someone talk about that was a pastor. And just the importance of it for our mind, for physical body, for longevity and
yeah.
ministry. And um not a peep. Like we didn't hear anyone make a peep about, no clapping, like nothing. Like they didn't respond to him at all. Like none of these pastors. I'm like, what is happening? And then the pastor's wife got on stage, and everyone was breaking for lunch, and she was like, okay, we're gonna break for lunch. And she was like, but we got Portos for dessert. And then the building was like, everyone was roaring. Like I literally thought the roof was gonna blow off the
Oh
building.
my
Like
god.
they were so excited about the dessert. And I'm like, this pastor just spoke for an hour, dropping so much truth and freedom and knowledge and like nothing. And then they went crazy over the desserts. And I just realized like this is a problem. Like, and I'm not judging, but I know from my own life, like all these experiences now I've had leading up to this point, like
Mhm.
this affects ministry big time. And so I don't know, that's kind of where our journey started with that. And just um it's hard. It's a lot of sacrifice and discipline, and
Yeah.
I had to like reprioritize my time and figure out like where I was kind of wasting time, that I would be able to like make healthier meals, you know what I mean? And a lot of people will say like, well, eating healthy is like more expensive, but it's actually not. Like it's way more expensive to eat out. And I think like,
Yeah.
I don't know, for me it's like I've gotten to this place like, what's more important? Like we're gonna pay for it now or later, even if it is,
Yeah.
that is expensive sometimes, but it's our health, like it's our bodies. And so
Yeah.
I don't know, there's so many things that are preventable. It just breaks my heart. That I think I couldn't imagine how fully alive the church would be if we took that serious.
Right.
Like what think about what we were putting in our bodies.
Why do you think that pastors and like the church doesn't talk about it more? Because I mean, we'll talk about sexual purity, we'll talk about all the other sins and all of that, but gluttony and like taking care of your body as a temple, it's clearly written in the Bible. And so why is
Yeah.
that like not something that's talked about?
I think because a lot of pastors I think are like gripped with this too. I feel like
Mm,
there's not an authority maybe to
mm,
speak on it because they're struggling themselves with it. And there's just, I mean, that's why they make jokes from the stage about like, well, I
right.
can't give up my pie. Like,
Which
I
is
know, but you
crazy to me.
can.
Like
I
before we
know.
talked on the phone, I like was so aware. Like I became so aware of like what I was eating and like what I was hearing. And I heard somebody make a joke and was like, this food's so good. I might be a glutton tonight. And I just was like, what? I'm sorry. No, that's not a joke. Like,
I
no,
know. I
like
know.
it's crazy.
It is.
I don't know. I guess you become numb to it if you're not like aware of it and it's
It's
not in the
true.
forefront of your mind. And so you're just like, this is normal, but it shouldn't be.
Right. No, I know. And I think like you said, just helping people think about it, right? Like the
Mhm.
first step to any kind of change is like becoming aware of it and thinking about what you're
Right.
doing. Um, and it's a fruit of the spirit, like self-control is fruit of the spirit. And we learned even on Skid Row, like so many of our friends and family would be quick to judge these guys who are struggling with heroin addictions,
Mm,
but then they would have their own addiction with sugar. I was like, but sugar kills more people than all hard drugs and alcohol combined, which is mind blowing to me because it's a
yeah.
preventable thing, right? It's like causing so much havoc in our body. That's why
Yeah.
when you have cancer, they inject you with sugar and it goes and finds the tumor. That's what feeds a tumor. But we don't think about these things.
It's terrible.
And Dustin always says, he's like, if you knew, we know the effects of sugar. So it's right. And I've felt conviction in my own heart. Like if I'm choosing to do something, even though I know it's wrong, it's
Mm,
not good for me. That's a sin. And yes, I have struggled a lot with that. Right. But like, if we have to acknowledge that, and even he would always say, like, if you could just inject a donut into your arm, and you know the effects of it, you know it's not good for you, you would never do that because
right.
you like it. So we justify the things we like. We like the taste of sugar, so we justify why it's okay, but
Ugh.
we know the effects of it. It's like, it's, I don't know. And it's interesting even with kids now, like seeing the difference in them when our boys, like I make a lot of great desserts for them, but I don't use processed sugar, and they've never had, well, Xander's never had candy. Silas, I'm not
Wow.
sure, like we got him later, but you see the behavioral effects there. They sleep better, they're like, they don't lose their minds so much. Like you
Yeah.
see parents, a lot of parents even are complaining about their kids, and it's like, but they're having sugar before bed, and then you don't know why they're not sleeping. And these poor kids, I'm like, we complain about what the sugar does to them, but we keep giving it to them.
Yeah.
But
Dang. Yeah. And obviously, like with this conversation, that's what I want though, is for people to like hear it, to feel like, oh, like let's talk about it more. Let's
yeah,
be aware of it and let's even be sensitive to whatever God wants to speak to the
yeah,
people that are listening to this podcast. So these questions that I'm going to ask are like for me too, because like I want to know the answers and like to help myself. For me, I feel like, I'm sorry, but I can look at you and just be like, oh, it must be easy for her. She just has more self control. She just likes to eat healthier. Like it's just easier for you. So, like, how at the beginning, like, how did you gradually do it? Like, what choices did you make, and how did you decide? Okay, we're gonna cut this stuff out. Like, this is what's unhealthy. Like, this is how we're gonna do this.
Yeah. Um, it's a great question. It's been so long. I feel like it's just been this process. That's why I always tell people like this is not overnight.
Yeah.
But the more I learned about like what's in our food and the illegal ingredients and how like you can go to Italy and have bread and you're fine,
So
even if you're
crazy.
celiac. Yeah.
When I heard
But
about
here,
that, I was like, what? Like, there's some things that are illegal, like in France, that you can't have here, like that
yeah,
you can have here. And I'm just like, how is that okay?
I know. It's a bummer. Like once I kind of became aware of just how that works, and I don't want to go into all that, but it
Yeah.
even with like, you know, Western medicine, it's like we don't go to the root, we treat symptoms. That's what, you know, that's why there's just always a prescription. Like it doesn't actually fix someone, it just keeps treating symptoms. When a lot of times I know like it's food related, you know, and it's just either whether it's causing gut issues or whatnot. So that became like once I became aware of that, that was a huge motivator for me to, I don't know, just make better decisions. And just personally, when I would eat right and then I stopped, like I become so sensitive now.
Mm-hmm.
Like I am so sensitive if I have anything because I felt like I detoxed my body from all this stuff over the years. But sorry, well, I guess the question is like, how did you say? How did I?
Yeah. Like, let's say someone's like, okay, like, where do I start? Like, how do I
Yeah,
know what's bad for me, what's not? Like, do I just like cold turkey it? Like, what? I don't know, like the
I'm
gradual.
pretty intense. I don't think that at least it's. I always say the first place is sugar. I just think like that's the one. I mean, we have times where we cheat. I'll have, you know, a slice of pizza or, you know, I mean, it's not that I don't ever have that stuff,
Yeah.
but I always regret it after because I don't feel well. So I have it less and less now because I know this is going to make me a grumpy mom. I'm going to be cranky to my husband because it does. It affects me even
Oh,
like
yeah.
anytime I have dairy now, I legit get depressed. And so but sugar is like a non-negotiable for us. That's one that we're like, no, no, no. Like I know what it does mentally, physically, like no.
Yeah.
So that's the one that we aren't lenient with at all. So I always suggest people to maybe start there. And if there's anything that's going to make you like have withdrawals and headaches and body aches and fever, like I don't want anything, you know what I mean, in
Yeah.
my body like that. And so I think sugar is a good place to start. There's a candida cleanse that is amazing. I don't know, I'm not one that can just be like, oh, I'll just have a little bit here. I can't,
Same.
because once I start having
Nope.
it, you want more, but that's what sugar is designed to do. That's
Mhm.
what dairy is designed to do. There's an enzyme in dairy that makes you want more. That's why when you're having it, you crave it. And so when I don't have it, I stop craving it. And especially if you get past like a week or 2 weeks, like you don't crave it anymore.
That's true.
And so it's like we did this candida cleanse. I'm telling you, we're about to do it again, actually.
Really.
Yeah, it was phenomenal.
I've done it. I'm thinking about doing it again, but I
It's so
I
good.
was like, it's amazing how like the first few weeks you go through the whole detox, and then after it's like a normal thing, and you just like, it's not even like a temptation. You're just like, no, like that's not an option. Like
Yeah,
this is what I'm like choosing into.
it's true. And your taste buds change.
Mm-hmm.
So, and we just talked to someone else about this who did that. It was like my taste buds changed. And because if you're eating a lot of sugar, think about it, like fruit's not gonna be that appealing. You're not
Yep.
gonna really want an apple. It's not as sweet, like it's not artificial. And so
You're right.
when you go through a cleanse like that, that was the thing I was most excited about was like when we could finally have like apples and almond butter or something. Like I just was like, oh my gosh, apples taste so good. And you realize oranges, they taste so good. Like there's these
They're so much
fruits,
sweeter after.
they are. And it's like, wow, God gave us a lot of stuff to actually really enjoy, but man has corrupted our food and our taste buds.
Mm.
And it's causing a lot, not only like is it causing health problems, I think it's causing anxiety, it's causing panic attacks and depression. And even my husband's like really passionate about talking about sugar stuff because he suffered from depression his whole life. He ate a ton of sugar his whole life. And then when he got off sugar, I mean, there would be like a week at a time where he couldn't get out of bed. My husband, Dustin, I've never, ever seen him depressed since we did that candida cleanse. Not once. I mean, of course, you get in a funk sometimes. People have like a bad day, but not
That's obviously
even
like different.
anything. Yeah, like, and so he was like, "Well, it makes sense. It's a chemical. You know what I mean? It's literally chemically made in a lab, and how could that not affect your brain?"
So like when you initially started it, did you have like accountability? I know there's obviously plenty of people that will push back, and I don't know why people do it, but they do. But were there people, do you feel like you had like accountability? Like how did you do it? Because for me, I can't do stuff like this by myself. I do not have the willpower. Like I need a partner or someone to do it with, to be like, okay, if I mess up, I'm letting this person down too. So
oh yeah, accountability is huge. I mean, we did the cleanse, my husband and my sister-in-law, we all did it together the first time. I think with it helps like if there's other people that want to, you know, cook and eat right with you. Like I'm very thankful that Dustin's open to it. And even though like he says it's not always what he wants, he knows he feels better. You know what I mean? And just that alone is motivation. And I think like, you know, people feel so lousy and they're like, I don't even know where to start because I'm tired. And it's just like, but once you start and you hang in there for like a week at least, you know what I mean? Then
you have to push through the funk of like the detox.
You have to, because then you get to the side of like, oh my gosh, I feel so good. Then you want to protect that and you don't want to go back to feeling lousy. And yeah, so, and I think I wanted to say too, why you said you don't know why people do that, why like they give you a hard time if you do start eating different. And I know it's because, and I've done this to people. I've done this to people with health, and I've done this to people with drinking. Like I had friends in college. I was the little train wreck. A lot of my girlfriends got saved in college, and they didn't want to do the same things as me anymore. I was still wanting to sneak out and go to parties. They were like finding so much life in other things that besides party, right? They weren't wanting to party, and I didn't get it. And I was just like, had such a bad attitude about it. But then that happened to me. Once I stopped drinking, everyone's like, you're no fun anymore. Like, like I lost all my friends. I literally lost every single friend. And it's because you actually want to do that, but there's a thing in you that you know it's right. That's the higher call. It's the better way. But you, like, at least I'm saying for me, like I knew what I needed to do, but I was like jealous of it almost and wanted to do that, but I just thought I couldn't. Yeah. And so then you try to, it's called crabs in the bucket. Like one crab tries to crawl in the bucket and they all pull them back down. Like it's sad. That has to be like that. And it's so sad when we Christians do it to each other. I'm like, what? You should be cheering me on. And my mom actually really apologized to me. She was giving me such a hard time about giving. I know a lot of my girlfriends, their complaint is the grandparents like just want to load up the kids with sugar. And I have friends who are like really health conscious and they don't eat sugar in their house. Then they really request that like their parents don't do that. And it's just this like American thing that you're supposed to just load up the kid with sugar. And I would always tell my mom, like, if you love our kids, like if you love them, you won't give them junk. Like it affects them so much. And anyways, it was just really hard for her in the beginning. And she was like, I can't give them anything. You know what I mean? Like, and I'd be like I make their breakfast every morning. Like I've gotten to such a flow that it's easy now. I don't even think twice about it. Like we have our like 5 staple things we eat, and I'll make pancakes out of like bananas and oat flour and protein.
Yeah.
And so anyways, she was just like, what can I give them? I can't give them anything. And she was just harping on me so much about it. I'm like, Mom, can you just say that you're proud of me for like taking good care of our kids? You think I want to be in the kitchen all the time? I hate being in the kitchen. I don't enjoy it. Like I've learned I enjoy the benefits of it tremendously. Like I love the benefits of eating right, but I don't love being in the kitchen. But it's something I'm willing to do because I know, you know what I mean? God has convicted me. He's shown me truth about food. I can't go back. Like it's not loving to me. It's not loving to my family. Like I know how much it affects me as, like I said, as a wife and a parent and a daughter, like of God. Like I'm not motivated to do ministry when I'm eating crap.
Right.
I'm not. I want to sit on a couch and watch Netflix. That's
and
that's
then
what
it
I
becomes
want.
like a cycle.
That you can't get out of. So
that was going to be a question I asked, because I was wondering, like, with your kids, like how do you like keep them protected from that? So
I have to stop caring what people think. That's what I had to do. I had to just stop, not care what people think. Halloween, I took the boys to this like festival. It had all these fun rides here in Vegas. And I looked like I beat my kids because I didn't let them have candy. Because like they offer them lots of candy, which was oh, okay, that's fine. But I'm like, that's okay. They're good. Like Xander's never even had candy. He didn't even know what it was. He doesn't even when they get older, like if they can make their own choices, right? Like I would hope that they would want to stay on this path. And I try to, like, we teach them, like, you know, this stuff can really make you sick. And like we want you to be vibrant. We want you to be healthy and be able to play and not have a runny nose all the time and like coughing, like, you know, it just affects your immune system. And we want you guys to, we just really take time to explain it to them too. But it is hard, especially like birthday parties and stuff. But I'll always have options for them. I have another option.
That's good.
Always. Yeah. And they're both really, really good eaters. Like actually, I'm a little bit maybe you call me ruthless with it, but I like okay, so I've learned a lot from other moms on YouTube and different friends of mine who cook a lot. But this one mom, she was like, you're not a short order cook, so you're not going to cook an individual meal for every picky kid that you have in your house. Like, who has time to do that? Like, and also though, your kid is never going to eat broccoli if they don't see you eat broccoli. So I was like, fair enough. But she was like, if your kid genuinely like doesn't like something you make, like offer them, they can have a second option, but don't make the second option like mac and cheese or like a peanut butter and jelly. They're never going to eat what you make if they know their second option is good.
That's true.
So there was only one time that Xander didn't eat what we ate, because we just all ate together. We ate all the same things. Xander's my youngest. We had him since he was a month old. And there was only one meal he wouldn't eat. It was like this Thai curry chickpea thing. Like, I don't know. I think it was a texture thing mostly. He did not like it. And I made it 3 different times and he wouldn't eat it. And so his option was, she said, make them either like a bowl of plain rice, which everywhere else around the world eats as a meal. Yeah, I mean, a bowl of rice or like a bowl of oatmeal, but nothing extra in it, like something very plain and boring, but at least they're getting food. Right. You know what I mean? So I did that, and then he never wanted that. So he just would always eat what I made. And he's an amazing eater, and it takes toddlers a few times to like something. Everyone comments like, this kid eats everything. He eats every vegetable, every fruit. Like that's
so impressive.
He eats everything. And so, but I can't take the credit. I just like stuck to my guns with like what other moms were saying. And I also would never give him the next thing until he finished the last thing I gave him. So I will hold on to it. Like if there's like zucchini and you didn't finish, you don't want it, I'm not going to make you eat it right now. Like you can get up and go play. But when you're telling me you're hungry, like that's what you're going to finish. And then you can have something else. Like we're not going to waste food either. Like I don't waste food. But it's so funny because once we adopted Silas, he hadn't eaten like that once we got him. You know, he ate mostly like Lunchables and typical.
How old was he whenever y'all adopted him?
3.
Okay.
So he had a lot of already patterns, ways that he did life. You know what I mean? Like it was mostly Lunchables and like Z bars and stuff like that. And so he detoxed really bad, like when we first got him. But it was a struggle in the beginning. I had to pray a lot and have a lot of patience, but because I was so used to Xander and I had him since he was born, it was harder with Silas. He was kind of set in his ways a little bit with food, super picky, super like anti-texture. He didn't want anything with a texture. Like he freaked out the first time he took a bite of rice. Like he didn't want anything that I made. And I was like, oh God, help me. And so, but there would be times where I would just be like, I make asparagus, I'd make vegetables. And I was like, I did the same thing with him. Like, we have to eat this until you get the next thing. And I mean, he would go sometimes like almost a whole day and not eat the last vegetable. And then he would just crush it. Or he would like gag, be like, well, and like try to tell me he was gagging, like he couldn't chew it. And I was like, I knew he was faking it. And it's so funny because he was like fake gagging. I'm like, you don't have to eat it right now, but we're gonna eat it later. And then he took a nap and he got up and I was like, boys, I have tickets to go back to that festival and ride rides. Like, but we have to finish your asparagus. You didn't finish your lunch. Yeah. And so he shoveled it in. That thing was gone in 30 seconds. Like he wasn't gagging. I'm like, I was laughing hard, so funny. But now they both love vegetables. Like they were, I was out of town like a month ago. I was speaking somewhere and my mother-in-law and father-in-law were in town and they were at the grocery store and they were with the boys and Dustin was with them. He called me laughing so hard. He was like, Xander and Silas, our boys, ran off and Xander grabbed 2 avocados. That's what he wanted from the store. And Silas grabbed a bag of green beans.
Oh my gosh.
And my father-in-law, who like is so anti-vegetable, was like, what planet am I living on? Who are these kids? Like, but it's been cool, so just like not caving, right? And just giving them what they want. I don't let them snack on processed stuff. Like that's a treat. Like if I make popcorn is like, I make it myself. That's like the worst thing they have, like that. Or sometimes they'll have chips and salsa and stuff, but it's not a everyday thing. Mm-hmm. But like day to day, my girlfriend told me too, she's like, kids will never go hungry. If you're hungry enough and you're sitting there and there's a bag of carrots, even though I'm not like in love with carrots, I'm going to eat the carrots. I'm hungry. Right. And so my other friend encouraged me, like, just have like fresh fruits and vegetables. They can have as much of that as they want in between meals. Right. Mm-hmm. So it's when you eat the chips and stuff that's why I want to go to a Mexican restaurant. I fill up on chips. I'm like, I want my meal because I just ate so many chips. Like it's the same thing with kids. And like a lot of parents are complaining, like, my kid won't eat like dinner. I'm like, they're not hungry enough. Like they should just eat real stuff in between. And if they don't want to eat it in between, they're like, no, I don't want an apple, or I don't want, whatever, snap peas or something. Like they'll eat the dinner then because they're actually hungry.
Right.
So I don't know. It's a lot of stuff I've just learned from other moms too. But
yeah, that's cool. Oh geez. Props to you for like sticking to it and just like being so determined, because I am terrible at self-control and like,
I'm the worst. Like, I'm the absolute worst. I told you some people can handle caffeine. I cannot. My body hates me. And I think it's probably because I had a crazy past and I abused my body. I have gut problems. Caffeine does not help the gut at all by any means. Like that's why the whole coffee poo. Yep. Somebody, they're like running to the restroom. It does something to your gut. And so I just can't handle it. Although I love it. I love the taste. I love the social aspect of it. There are so many more cons for me than pros when it comes to that. And I've detoxed off of it 6 times. And I know the last time I talked to you, I was like feeling convicted because I know it makes me just like anxious. It makes me, I don't get good sleep. Like I snap more at the kids. I'm almost like in a hurry. I feel like I don't even see them. Like I'll get so bogged down with tasks that I'll just like blow through the day. Yep. I can get stuff done when I drink it, but I like don't see people, as if that makes sense. And so I know that about myself. So for me, it is a conviction. And I'm always like, God, why? Like everyone else can. And there's this book called Practicing the Presence of God, I think it is. And it's this monk, and he talks about like God told him others can, but you cannot. And I just felt like, okay, it's something I can't have, but I just detoxed off it. Since I talked to you last, I detoxed again, and it was horrible.
Oh,
Like almost 4 days of just a splitting migraine that wouldn't go away and body aches. I got sick. Like it was
that's
terrible,
rough.
but I feel so much better.
Ugh.
Uh,
I try
but
so hard
I
not
don't
to
have
like
what I'm saying is I don't
consistently.
have self-control. Like I
Yeah.
need his help like every single moment of every day. I'm like constantly praying like, God, help me. And I think like with the food, I've gained more self-control, but there are so many areas like,
Mm.
you know what I mean, that I'm such a work in progress and really trying to walk in the opposite spirit, even, you know, wanting to just like pick my kids up and love on them when they're throwing a tantrum and throwing themselves all over the floor over something silly. Like it's hard, like, you know what
Yeah.
I mean, to not even just raise your voice, like if they're not listening, you know what I mean? Like it's hard to have that self. I mean, we all have, I think, areas where there's maybe we're stronger at than others, but
Yeah.
I think because I know the drastic difference with the health stuff, it's a huge motivator for me. Like,
Yeah.
and
You
I
have a
so
like big
desperately want to
why.
fulfill, yeah, my big why and like my calling, right? Like
Yeah.
I want to fulfill my calling as a wife, a mom, and even like sharing my story. And I know I get brain foggy. I get like, you know, distracted, and my ADD is worse when I'm putting stuff in my body that's not fuel.
Yeah. I feel like it's so important to like God commanded us to love like ourselves, to love him and to love others. And like you can't do that like if you're not treating your body right and feeding it with good fuel and stuff.
Yeah,
Because in the
you
long run,
can't.
like you can't fulfill what God's calling you to do. You can't love others. Like you said, like it affects your attitude. It affects like all these different things.
Yeah,
And so you can't do that. And then you're obviously not loving yourself if you're not treating yourself right. And
right.
yeah. So
And that's all overflow of loving yourself. Like,
yeah.
right, like you said, you can't do any of that.
Yeah.
That's like
You
just the
can't.
overflow of first loving yourself. And I'm
It's
really
so good.
passionate about these things.
I love it. It's so good. Are there any practical things that you've done to be able to like walk more in self control? Which obviously, like day one, you had to like walk out the whole food thing. Now it's like a lot easier for you, but I can't imagine like these past like years, like you've been able to grow in that and be stronger in it. But were there like practical things that, or I guess advice you could give to other people of like, okay, like this is a practical thing of like how you can like walk in self control in this area?
I think for me, accountability is so huge. Like I don't know why I feel like supposed to share this, but I think I might have told you this. When I was a full-time missionary in Texas at Youth with a Mission, I had a miscarriage, and the doctor, it was like 4 months. I was 4 months along, so I basically gave birth, but I was in a lot of pain. And I have a past of abusing narcotics, whether it's Adderall or Vicodin and stuff. And so I very much steer clear of that kind of stuff. But I was so desperate, I didn't know what to do about the pain. Like I couldn't handle the physical pain. And so the doctor gave me Vicodin, and the first like 4 days after I miscarried, I was taking the Vicodin. But then like the pain started subsiding, and it was like I knew I could just handle taking like ibuprofen or something. And so fourth day, I take the Vicodin. Fifth day rolls around, no more pain, and I took the Vicodin again because I was numbing myself. I didn't want to grieve and go through that whole process, you know what I mean, of just loss. And then the sixth day rolled around, and I took another Vicodin, and God was like intervening then and just being like, you need to give these pills to your husband and don't take any more. Like, I want to walk with you through this. I want to carry you through. And like, we got to grieve together, and I'll help you. Like, you don't need to numb yourself with the pills, you know what I mean? Because that's the easier way.
Right.
Then you end up in a whole messy situation. So that's been and when I say like gluttony, for me, it hasn't been, of course I struggle like with food, and I'll get off track and I get myself back on track. I feel like God has me on a short leash with that. But you know, just being sober, like, is, I've been not sober longer than I've been sober. And I think like accountability is huge for me to not go back into old like coping mechanisms, right? So with that, with the Vicodin, like I knew God was like, give the pills to Dustin, like you shouldn't have these kind of thing. And then even like as of a couple months ago, I've been sharing this a lot when I've been speaking places lately. So when we adopted Silas, it was like we were so excited, but it was like someone threw a rock in the spoke of the wheel. Like it just like derailed our whole life. Like I was running every day again. Like I had such a flow with like cooking and Xander and my husband. Like it was like this perfect little flow I had going. And then God's like, anytime we're comfortable, he just stirs it up again. But when we got Silas, it was challenging because it was a new location for him. He was having nightmares a lot in the middle of the night. So like it was like months and months and months of no sleep. And then I'm still trying to function, still trying to like feed my family. It was a lot. It was he was really jealous of Xander in the beginning and beating him up. And I didn't know who to talk to because I didn't know anyone who was adopted an older sibling. That's just so not the natural order. Usually bring a baby in. Right. And and then Dustin got on America's Got Talent stuff. There were so many different arenas in our life. And then we didn't have grandparents helping because we were in Virginia Beach. And then we lived in a hotel on Hollywood and Highland for 2 months. I'm like, what am I going to do with toddlers in Hollywood? What? And we're eating out every meal. So their behavior I could tell was changing because we couldn't cook. We just had to eat out. They gave us money to eat out every single day. And which was definitely making stuff worse for all of us. And at that point, like my body was really hurting. I was having inflammation again. I was having brain fog, mostly just chronic pain that I just couldn't get rid of. And I knew a lot of it was from what we were eating. It was also stress from the boys and doing it by myself. Even my heart broke for single moms because I'm like, how are they doing it? I don't know. Dustin was so busy with the AGT stuff. And so I had started using CBD that had like a small amount of THC in it, which helps with pain a lot. Like in no way was my goal ever to be high. Like that was not what I was going for. Like I hate being anything but sober. Like I don't even want to have one drink because I love being sober and I love like my clear mind. But for the pain, it was helping me. And I got to a point where I had to really acknowledge that it was doing something to me mentally. You know what I mean? So again, like I went back to it. It was almost like I wasn't turning to the Lord in that really hard time with the boys. I was like turning to a substance that was helping me with like pain, basically. And then I got to a place, and the one night Dustin and I were just praying, and he got his guitar out and he was worshiping. And I was just like, I feel like I need to just throw this stuff out. It's helping me, yes, with the pain, but it's causing more problems mentally. It's like felt more fearful than normal. It's just like, I knew it was doing something, even though I liked that it helped with the pain because physically that was nice to have relief. But I like threw it in the trash, and he was just like worshiping, and I just felt so much peace. Like I just got flooded with peace. But I don't know why I was supposed to share that, but I do have obviously issues with self-control and going back to old ways, right, to cope with things. But God constantly brings me back on track and shows me like, I'm all you need. Don't go to anything else. You need nothing else. Like, trust me. You know what I mean? And I wasn't going to the Lord. I wasn't having like solid quiet times. I was just waking up with the boys instead of before them and getting my day started right. Like, and I think just from all these experiences of just going back into turmoil when I don't have self-control, whether it be what I'm putting in my body or whether it be quiet times or physical movement, right? Getting outside and like moving my body. I so want to protect that. And that's actually my word this year. Like I felt like God gave me a word. My birthday was yesterday, but is self-control and discipline. And that's the hardest one, but there's the most fruit from it, I think.
Oh yeah. For
like,
sure.
It's the hardest by far, but we can do it. It's just learning to choose outside of what we feel. Even if I feel tired, I'm going to get up and I'm going to make breakfast and do it because I know the benefit. I know why. And yeah.
I think that's good. Like knowing, I don't know, like just knowing why you're doing it is a big thing for me, at
Yeah.
least, is like, if I don't have a strong enough why I'm doing something, then I'm just not going to stick to it. Like it's not enough.
Yeah. No, I
Um,
know. And I think if
so,
people knew, like, right, everyone has a specific calling on their life.
mhm.
Just that alone, like you say you don't have kids, like some people don't have kids, that's not motivating to them, right? To like
Right.
see their kids' behavior better and then just feel better and do better. Even if it's just like the calling that's on your life, like that to me. So of all the stuff I've experienced, like all the things that like everyone used to like give me so much praise for that was meaningless. Literally, it was all meaningless. Just party on celebrities' yachts or like being on commercials or in major magazines, all this stuff, right? Like the stuff that like you think really matters, like nothing compared to like when God would use me to minister to like one girl or guy or whoever, or getting to like share my story publicly and get to pray for people afterwards. Like there is, or someone writes me like an encouraging message or something on Facebook, like, you know, that they got sober or something because they watched my testimony. Like there's no better feeling than that, right? Like there's, so that being said, like I just feel like that's the biggest why. Like being used by God is the greatest honor, and there's nothing more fulfilling than that. Like there's nothing that's going to bring more joy, more satisfaction, more contentment, more peace, like than that.
It's so
When he uses,
true.
that's the whole reason we're here. So
Yeah.
we have to protect that. And if we're doing something to ourselves that's limiting the call on our life, and he can't use us the way he wants to use us, or we're shortening our life and our ministry because of our own choices, like that's consequences to our choices. And so there's nothing worth that to me. Like for me, like to eat like a cupcake at a birthday party that I know wasn't gonna, like no one made it. You know what I mean? Like it's not worth it.
Right.
Not worth it.
That's so true. That's so good. So do you eat meat, or is it like full plant-based that you try to stick to?
So this doctor I just saw in Reno told me I would do best with a plant-based, just because of the inflammation stuff I deal with and like the pain that I feel when I eat meat. But I've been less and less wanting meat. It's weird. Like, yeah, I've been moving more towards plant-based, which all the celebrities and all the rich people I know eat plant-based. And I think there's also something to that. Like everyone else just crushing meat every meal, but they aren't eating it. Like, why?
Right.
You know what I mean? It makes me ask questions too. Like, why aren't you eating this?
Yeah.
And, you know, stuff has just changed. There's just so much that's changed, sadly. It's not like there's something that I think is so evil about meat. It's just, if you knew the ways that these things, the conditions of it now, and how much feces are allowed in meat, and the way that animals are being raised on top of each other, like literally it's so not sanitary. Like it's just, something is like off to me about it. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
No, I get that.
but
Good though. I'm just curious. I went vegan for like a month, I think, and I loved it. Like it felt so good. It was hard because that was one time I actually did it by myself,
yeah,
but I just wanted to see what it was like. And
yeah.
then I broke it with Chick-fil-A, and I was like, oh, I feel so bad. Like I like was so sick after.
So
And
you
like,
saw the difference, like once you
oh
have it,
yeah.
then
Yeah.
yeah,
Even with just that and then doing Candida, I was like, oh, I actually started loving the food with Candida, and like loving, like I'll miss it sometimes where I'm like, oh, I miss like eating this. And like, I don't know.
same.
But yeah, but it is encouraging to hear how you don't like cooking either, because I feel like for me, I can easily use that as an excuse of like, I hate being in the kitchen. I don't like cooking. That's not something I like. But even you saying that, like, I don't like it, but it's worth it. And like, I'm going to choose
Yeah,
that like hard thing. So,
yeah. I know I
um,
need to, I don't enjoy it, and I try to be in there the least amount of time as possible. So
yeah.
I have like our staples of things. I kind of want to maybe start sharing even some of the stuff we eat that's like easy, even like
Yeah.
one thing we eat that's so good is if you like avocados. I don't know, everyone likes avocados,
I
but
love avocados.
oh, they're so good. And do we get these? They're called Lindbergh rice cakes. You can get them at the granary. You live in Texas, right?
Yep.
Still, okay. So they have them. They're not like rice cakes that are the Quaker ones are like spongy and weird.
Yeah.
They're actual crunchy, like they're just really good. It's called Lindbergh brand. But we put avocado on there. We squeeze like a lemon and then like pink salt. And then sometimes I'll do the everything bagel seasoning on it. And then if I want to make it even so good, it's such a good snack. Or I'll do cayenne pepper if I want to make it spicy, or sometimes I'll just throw a fried egg on it, even like just to make it more hearty. But there's just so many easy that don't take a lot of time. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, that's so good.
Yeah.
But
if you shared recipes or any kind of quick things, I would totally be into that. So just,
I think I'm gonna have to do that. A lot of people have been asking me like, one girl, my friend Brittany wants to fly me to Texas for 2 weeks just to train her kids how to eat. I was like, it's like that show, remember the nanny that comes up with the bad kids?
Yep. It's like the food. Like,
yeah.
That's funny. But just shows how valuable it is. Like,
yeah.
Good. But
I know I think more and more people are realizing too, like, and especially with just how crazy stuff is right now. I don't know. I think just being able to really boost our immune systems is so important.
Yeah. Well, when we were doing Candida, it was during the beginning of the pandemic, I think. It was late 2020. And we didn't get sick. We didn't get COVID at all. And me and my friend, were both like, I think it's because we're like working out, we're eating healthy, we're not eating sugar. Like our immune system is probably the best it's ever been.
Yeah.
Like, so it makes a difference. But
yeah, it definitely does. It's not a quick fix.
No.
Which is what we want in America. Everything instant, quick, easy. It's not easy, but nothing like worth anything is easy. Like,
it's true. That's so true. But
this is so good. Thank you for having me. I love talking
about this stuff. Thank you so much for like coming on here, sharing, and like, I don't know, like I feel super privileged that I get to like have you on my podcast, and like it's encouraging for me. So I'm just hoping it's encouraging and helps other people too, because this is important.
You. It is. It's so important. Yeah. So good.
Cool. Thank you so much for listening to this episode. If you made it to the end, I know it's a longer one, but it's so good. There's so much meat in it. Yeah, I hope you are encouraged and it helps open conversation. And if you have any feedback, be sure to message me. I will put my number in the description of this episode, so you can go ahead and text me and give me feedback. And yeah, thank you for listening. Have a wonderful day. Be blessed.